The Democratic Alliance's leadership race has been thrown wide open following John Steenhuisen's decision not to contest for a third term as party leader. His announcement comes at a time when the DA is polling at its highest level to date and is part of the Government of National Unity for the first time since 1994, while Steenhuisen maintains that his decision was voluntary and in the best interests of the party. Reports of internal tensions, policy disagreements and concerns over the DA's role in government have drawn attention to party unity, leadership stability and the party's future direction. Let's unpack all of these developments. I'm joined in studio by political analyst Khanyi Magubane. Good afternoon to you, Khanyi.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you in studio.
I know.
I'm honored.
And the network is always doing its thing.
I thought you only exist through a screen.
No, I'm a real person.
What a week. John Steenhuisen,
yes.
For the longest time, it seemed as if he has the party leadership cohort firmly in his corner and in his control. But you started hearing these rumblings culminating in the resignation of Deon George.
Yes.
But even after that, it seemed as if the party was going to stand with him. What for you, what do you believe moved him in that direction to ultimately make the decision that says, listen, I honestly cannot stand for a re-election?
Well, firstly, I don't think it was John's decision not to stand for re-election. I do think that it was a negotiated exit, right? So we know that there were many meetings happening, behind the scenes. And I think the deal that they've cut is that he doesn't stand, but he does get to finish his term as a minister in cabinet, which I also have my own theories about, because I do suspect that the DA will not honor that agreement when the new leader comes in after April. I think we will see politics playing out, in a very real way. But I think that for John, what really changed the trajectory from him having that firm support and that control, it's how well he was doing in his portfolio and how close he was, with the president and how well seated he was. I mean, we all remember that footage of John doing the Macarena in the middle of the circle with all the ministers while they were hosting a Chinese delegation before the G20, how he's always sitting right next to the president. And this sent, many of the constituents to see red, and it's really the inability to separate between party and state. There's a difference between John, the DA leader, and John in the national cabinet. When cabinet ministers come together, it doesn't matter which political party they come from. They have to sing from the same hymn sheet because they are serving national interests. And I think John is a smart politician. He realized that he needs to soften the DA's tone in order for them, number one, to stay in the GNU, but for them to continue enjoying all of these portfolios that they've been given, because they've been given very strong portfolios. And so if he had to push the hard line continuously, it would then push the ANC to implement those calls for the reconfiguration of the GNU that the NEC had made quite strongly.
Yes.
But they conceded because they could see that, through John, the DA is trying to reach the middle ground, is trying to compromise, and that's why they are still in the GNU today. But however, the constituents and the electorates saw it very, very differently.
Yes, in fact, say a bit more about that, because Deon George makes that point that says, basically, it's almost as if the DA's voice is being drowned out. The leader is allowing the DA's voice to be drowned out in government, instead of the DA infusing itself and its style of governance on the national government, but actually you are seeing it compromising itself more and more. This was always going to be the danger for the DA, was it not? That the danger of co-option once you are part of a governing coalition.
I think the minute they came into the GNU, one of the first questions is how are they going to work together, given the difference in their political ideologies, given the difference in their policies, and given the policy directions that are so different, whether you're talking about health, economics, they have very different ways of viewing them. Now you come into the cabinet, right? And for the longest time at a national level, we've been implementing ANC policies. And now how do we then create a space or a configuration of a cabinet that gives space that if a DA minister is in a particular portfolio, that portfolio now runs according to DA policy. You know, then if another minister from another party is in that portfolio now runs according to that party's policy. It's going to create a lot of disjuncture, you know, and
Yes.
I think that's what John realized very quickly, that for them to implement DA policy in the way that they were calling for when they were still in the opposition party and when he was still the chief whip, it's a very different ball game now. So they've called him, you know, the Judas Iscariot of politics, because when they see him fraternizing with the other ministers, they're starting to call him the puppet of the ANC. They're starting to call him a sellout. They're starting to see that John forgot his mandate. You know, that's what they're accusing him of.
Because the suggestion is that it got to a point where there were no red lines
Yes.
for the DA, right? Whether you're talking NHI, whether you're talking the National
vet.
Empowerment, Fund,
Yeah.
the vet issue,
Yes.
the Bella bill,
Yes.
and everything in between. It seemed as if there were no red lines, a point at which the leader would say, we've seen enough.
Yes.
We want to make a difference, but we're walking away. And critics like Dion George narrow it down to his own personal vulnerabilities. How much did that compromise him within the leadership, such that it made it possible for others within to say, hang on, the question's being asked, we're not going to go out and criticize you in public,
Right.
but please answer these questions.
I think in the beginning of the GNU, the DA was still hitting very hard, you know, on those issues that you mentioned. But as they continued staying longer, they realized that the door is always open for them to leave. I think the ANC has always made it clear that they are not holding the DA under duress in the GNU. And if they feel like they can't have expression, and if they feel like it's too hard to be in the National Cabinet, they can leave. However, this is the very first time that the DA has had an opportunity to experience being the government. They've always been in the pews of the opposition. We've known John as the firebrand chief whip in Parliament, holding government to account. But now he is the government. And the very same accusations that we've seen being leveled at ANC ministers, now it's being leveled at him, particularly around the foot and mouth disease. So the realities of being the government is what the DA is dealing with, that it's no longer just about us and our policies and our party. When you are a minister, you're representing an ANC person, a DA person, an IFP, you're representing a South African. And these are the issues that John had to grapple with. And I think many couldn't make that distinction between party and state. And this is why now we are here, because now John is seen as an electoral risk. That's what he became. He became an electoral risk for the DA.
I do want to go to us looking forward to the Congress and the implications. But one last aspect that I want to pull at, what are the stakes for the DA, Khanyi? Given the performance in the 2019 elections, the coming in then of the leadership led by John Steenhuisen that was meant to reorient the party and say part of the reason you were punished is that you started straying away from that which distinguished you as an opposition party. I will reorient with the result that performance stabilizes in the 2024 elections. Then they go into government with all of the nuances and the details that you just outlined.
Yes.
In that trajectory of which direction are you heading electorally in terms of your fortunes, what were the stakes for them to act and act now?
The stakes were very high. They needed to act in the particular manner that they did, because we are literally just months away from the local government elections. Every step they take now will decide how well they perform. We know that overall the D8 has gained some strength after Musi Maimane left in 2019. John was brought in to turn things around, to bring back the constituents that went off to Solidarity and Freedom Front Plus, and to bring them back into the fray. And for the longest time, he was doing very, very well. But then two issues now come up. Foot and mouth disease comes out. Government is accused of being slow in its vaccination rollout. Government is accused of not allowing private vaccination companies to vaccinate animals. And what we're experiencing are farmers en masse crying about, you know, large tracts of cattle and livestock that have died because government was dragging its feet. And John became the picture of that failure. You know, and that became a very big thing, because the right leaning of the DA is still very active. because the DA is made up of, within its own organization of the Liberals and the Conservatives.
Right.
And the Conservatives are those who've been calling for John, to act stronger, to stop failing. So the DA has been seen as having failed the farmers and the agricultural sector. And those are part of their core constituents.
Yeah.
And so to save the party, it only made sense for John not to run again so that they could bring in a candidate that can try and resuscitate that relationship.
So, Khanyi, let me bring in the national spokesperson of the DA, Jan De Villiers, who's been listening to us.
Oh, shame, Jan.
Talking about his political party as if he's not in the room and wondering, when do I get to be heard? Jan, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. Where does the exit of John Steenhuisen leave you as a party in your own terms? You've heard some of our own thinking and theorizing about it. Does it leave you in a state of crisis in that, this is not a change you had anticipated, is it?
Well, good afternoon to yourself and to the listeners. It's wonderful to be with you. I think you started by saying it has blown the leadership race wide open. And the way the DA experiences leadership changes like this really is excitement, John Steenhuisen has not quit. He has just indicated that he's not available for re-election, which opens the floor for other DA members to raise their hands and join in the fun, to say who is going to be the new DA leader. This brings about a lot of speculation, and rightfully so, because it is very important who's going to be the leader of the second biggest political party in South Africa, and the political party in South Africa that is still growing whilst other parties are declining in support. So it is indeed exciting times. We have our upcoming Federal Congress in April, where we will elect our new leader. And at this stage, nominations have not yet opened. So we will see who will put their name in the hat.
Yeah, I'm afraid you don't get off so easily. Before we get to the excitement of who comes up next, who puts up their hand next, there's the reckoning with his exit as the leader, because this wasn't in the script. If you and I are to be honest with one another, until a couple of months ago, it wasn't on the script, in that it looked as if he was set to be re-elected for another term in office. So just reckon with that reality, that this is a change of script. Now that you're having to now run a nominations process, you were always going to, but many people didn't expect John Steenhuisen to be seriously challenged for that leadership role.
Yes, so I'm the national spokesperson for the DA, but if I may speak, just as a DA member, the expectation, I think, from most DA members was that John Steenhuisen could very easily have run again and won again, and would have easily have been able to stay the leader of the DA. And I think that speaks to what you perhaps say when you say, this was not in the script. But you must just remember, in the script is our party's rules. And that party's rule says that we have a Congress every 3 years where we elect new leaders. And that's it's an internal democratic process. And John, as the current leader, had to, at some stage, decide, is he going to be up for re-election or not? The party is really thankful for John, because he took the party, as you mentioned, in very turbulent times, and he steadied the ship. He gave us not only electoral growth, so the party grew under John Steenhuisen. We were polling at 16% when Magubane exited as leader. It was very turbulent times. And we are now polling at 30%. So he's really taken us into not only growth, but into a party of government, a party that is now seriously pulling on the levers of power and making a contribution to save South Africa and to show that we can bring our track record to the fore. So it might not have been in the script, as you say, but Mr. Steenhuisen took a look at what he's done. He called it his mission accomplished speech. So he basically said, listen, I've done what I've set out to do, and I think it is now time for a new leader to take the party forward. And he did this of his own free will. I understand people like to speculate about these things, but I can promise you there was no party decision, there was no party influence, This was a decision of John Steenhuisen's own free will. And I have to commend him for that, because how many leaders do you know who could easily have gone into an election and won again? He could have won again easily, but he chose to do what he thought was the right thing for the
Right.
party and the right thing for South Africa. And for that, I commend him.
Khanyi, I'll give you a word in a moment, but I want to stick with Jan for a moment. Jan, how damaging has this episode been for you as the DA? I've seen commentary that says the veneer of infallibility has been shattered as far as the DA is concerned. Many people saying this is not the kind of conversation you are used to hearing about the DA and the abuse of a credit card and the personal financial vulnerabilities of the leader, and perhaps exposing that person to being influenced and perhaps clouding their judgment about being in government and the sins of incumbency in government itself. How damaging has this episode been, and perhaps has it forced itself onto the agenda if it was not going to be on the agenda of your National Congress in April?
To be honest with you, I think that if there was damage, it would be short-lived and actually outlived, because the reality is it is a great example of what the DA stands for. We always say that we will fight corruption or wrongdoing where we find it, and that we believe in due process. And this is exactly what happened. An accusation was leveled against John Steenhuisen. Our Federal Legal Commission was brought into an investigation mode. They did a thorough investigation of this allegation of misappropriation of party funds, and they found John Steenhuisen not guilty. He made everything available to them. The party made all the funds available to the Federal Legal Commission, and he was found not guilty. And this is what voters can expect from the DA. We do not shy away from accountability. When there's accusations against any DA member, we investigate it, and we have also shown that where someone is guilty, we do take disciplinary action. So I think that really what's happened is a showcase of that nobody is bigger than the DA. No person in the DA is above investigation, and that the facts will always stand.
Right.
That a fair finding will also, and a transparent finding will also always be the end result.
All right, let's project forward then, Khanyi. Let me
Yes.
start with you. April is not far from now. The current federal leader has indicated, I'm not available for re-election. What are the implications? Who are the key players to watch? Not only those who will be contesting, but those who are the power behind the throne.
The power behind the throne. You really want us to go there. Now, the people who are really holding the power behind the throne, in my personal perspective, are the people who fund the party. Those are the people whose faces we never see, but those are really the influential people. We know that parties like the ANC, like the DA, have common funders, at the end of the day. So, those people have very influential voices within the running of the party. I think that people like Solly Malatsi will definitely go for it. I think that Jordan Hill-Lewis is the forerunner. His name has been touted, wildly. He is the current mayor of Cape Town. And I do think that if he does go on to make it in the top seat, I suspect that he will want a taste of national government. I don't think he will want to remain the mayor. And while an ordinary member of the party in the form of John Steenhuisen continues to be at national. And I think that's where the politicking is going to come in, because once the new leader comes in, we will probably have a reconfiguration of the DA delegation within the national government. We may see them moving around the different portfolios. Siviwe has been doing great, Leon has been doing great, and I think even, the other leader in fisheries, the new one, after Dion George. They've been the one party in cabinet that have had many reappointments and shake-ups, and hopefully now they'll have some stability after the new party leader is elected.
Jan, your last leadership change of guard was bruising when the likes of Mmusi Maimane were exiting. How differently do you foresee this one playing itself out? And I know that nominations are not open, so you did say that nominations are not open yet. But what's your own thinking around this leadership question and how it can be resolved in a manner that is less bruising to the party than the last time?
Yeah, I think it's an important question, and in short, it's vastly different because in 2019 we suffered a massive electoral decline, and often after an investigation was done by the Federal Council on what was the cause of this. The former leader basically walked off the job, decided he wasn't in it anymore, which left a leadership vacuum, and had to see us elect an interim leader in the form of John Steenhuisen, who then successfully ran at the following Congress to become the permanent leader of the party. So contradict that with where we are today. The party is growing. We are in government. We've had a leader that's done 2 terms, and out of his own has said, well, he thinks it's the time is right to pass up the baton. I think that's all very positive energy, and it's exciting, and I think it gives the opportunity for DA members to now really talk to each other and say who should be our new leader, and that is really good because we've got the local elections at the end of this year, and we've got the national elections in 2029, 2 crucial elections coming up. So DA members have to really look at themselves and say, who's the right strategic person to take us through the local elections, and not just make sure that we retain the city of Cape Town, but that we win some other metros, and that we perhaps win some more local municipalities outside of the Western Cape. That we show growth, and positive momentum.
Yeah, thank you for your time this afternoon, Jan. And just to be clear, no one is headed for Harvard this time around, are they?
Not that I can confirm. I don't see any Harvard studies being conducted.
No Karabo Khachau, no Sivuyo Kwahube, no Solimalatsi headed for Harvard.
Well, I can tell you this much. I'm not heading to Harvard, so that's all I can confirm.
Okay. Thank you for your time. That's Jan De Villiers, who's the national spokesperson of the DA, and we were in studio joined by Khanyi Magubane, a political analyst, just unpacking some of the recent developments of the past week in the Democratic Alliance.